to the Relentless CEO Podcast with Adam Kifer. Follow your path to success alongside icons and industry leaders in martial arts, fitness, and more. Let's go. This is the Relentless CEO Podcast.
Well, excited to talk to you about martial arts and everything. I know you've been making a splash in the industry, especially this last year. It's been awesome to sort of see the growth in the schools that you're helping. For anyone that hasn't heard about you yet, can you just give us a little quick bio?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Jennifer Waters. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Seven Figure Dojo. Actually got started in this whole thing because back in the day, I was just a kid on the mats growing up underneath my dad. He's been doing martial arts pretty much his whole life. And so, I always thought that the school was going great because we were producing black belts, we were going to competitions. But by the time I was 18, my dad and I had this conversation with my mom. We're like, well, we think we probably need to shut this thing down because we only had 50 students. We were making a few $1,000s a month, maybe, if that, because we weren't charging hardly anything. And I didn't want to shut the school down. I wanted to do martial arts as a profession. I wanted to thrive. And so that's when we really started investing into mentorship and learning marketing systems and developing out what I call now the 7FD method. And then from there, that's we went from a few $1,000s a month to over $1 million a year in 4.5 years. So yeah.
That's awesome. Congrats on that. That's huge. So now you're teaching other people how to do the same thing, which is great. And I know you're working with a whole bunch of school owners. And I know from doing so myself, you get a lot of insights sort of on how the industry works. And in your opinion, just with the schools you worked with, what are some things that you see personally that separate the high achievers from the ones that are struggling a bit?
Implementation. Information, I think that's the saying goes, information is worth pennies and implementation is worth millions. And it really is the truth. There's so much information that's out right now. In this industry and other industries, what really just separates people is the degree to which they're willing to implement. And that's different for everybody because everybody has different goals. Some people have that drive to just, I'm going to do everything and I'm just going to do it the best I can. I'm not going to stop until I hit my goal. And some other people want to do the same thing, but at a slower pace. So that's what I would see as the biggest degree of difference is how hard and how much do they implement what the resources that they're given into their business.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's interesting because you'll go to the same event as another school owner, or you'll see two school owners in the same mastermind, and one is just absolutely crushing, and the other one's struggling, and they're getting the same information. There's just that one difference, right? Sure. And for you, I don't know too much about your program, but what are some of the things that you're really focusing on in your program that you feel like is sort of giving your clients a competitive edge?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one thing is the fact that when clients come in, they can choose a couple of different paths. Some people just want to work with us and just want to get the coaching. They just want to know what the next steps are. Some people want us to help take care of their marketing, their lead follow-ups, all those things. Some people just want to work closer with me and they want to be in my upper level mastermind that I have. So there's a lot of different ways that you can, move forward in your business. It's just really what is it that you need in that stage of business. And I think a lot of people, they just know that they need help, right? And the most important thing for whether they work with you, whether they work with me, whether they work with somebody else, is when you do say, yes, I do need help, make that decision and stick with it. Push through whatever that decision is, because you've been in martial arts your whole life too, I believe. But when you first start, you're not going to become a black belt overnight. And it's no different with business. The problem is that we try to correlate that I'm a black belt in martial arts, so I must be a black belt in every other aspect of my life. And that's just not true. You have to have that white belt mentality. You have to be willing to learn, and then you have to be willing to apply the concepts that you're learning.
Yeah, I agree. I also think just going off those parallels again, you need business reps like you need reps on techniques as well. Because I see a lot of business owners, they'll try something once and then they're like, well, it didn't work exactly how I wanted it to, so throw it out the window. And it's like, when you didn't do a side kick perfectly the first time, did you just never do a side kick again because it didn't work properly? So I think there's a lot to that. And I think, especially martial arts school owners, we separate it so much that we don't see the similarities between the two things and the work ethic required to actually master it. I know with digital marketing coming, AI and all of this stuff in our industry, there's a lot of different possibilities for the future of martial arts. And I'm just curious, where do you feel like the future of martial arts is going, and what do you think is going to be like some of the biggest changes to happen in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, the industry that we have, like, I think people have a misconception of what stage that we're in as an industry. If you look back at the 70s, and I would say really the 1970s was that point where martial arts as something that you could participate in and pay someone money to learn first started coming on the scene. Like, that's when my dad started initially taking it. Then the 80s, it became a little bit more mainstream. The 90s is really when it got commercialized. But in the 90s, people still didn't have a level of professionalism that they expected from different schools. And when you hit the 2000s, that was the differentiator. The more professional schools were the ones that people trusted more. And then you really try to elevate yourself with professionalism. And then you get into 2010, before COVID, and you're really just looking at it's getting more and more mainstream, and people expect professionalism. Post-COVID, everybody's expectation is that your martial arts school should be professional. Like, they're not looking at, oh, well, let me go compare this school to that school and see which one's more professional. Like, there's a very stark difference between the fight gyms and the professional schools. And I think that that's been huge. So now we're leaning into 2025. People are no longer willing to travel to find you or to get to you.
Yep.
Everything's about convenience. Everything. And in fact, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your school is technically better, cheaper, whatever comparison that you want. It doesn't matter, because people value time more than they value money or anything else. And their time is directly linked to convenience. So I think that we're going to see more and more people that get left behind because they're not recognizing that, and they think they can stay in the same location they've been in for the last 20 years, even though the city is moving and they're not moving with the growth, or they're not opening another location. They're just going, well, I'm just going to stay in the same location, but then the growth is moving, and then they go, why is my market share shrinking? And I still have the best school in town. Well, it doesn't matter. If someone else's school is a minute away from their house, they're going to drive to that school.
Now, what do you think is the solution for those people that are sort of stuck in that town that maybe is getting older in population, or population is shrinking, and maybe they just don't have the money to just pick up and move right now?
Yeah, I think that it all comes down to, like, this is the hard part. When I first started this, when I first started learning how to, like, get into business, everything was still from that frame of martial arts. Like, I had a martial arts mindset about everything instead of having a business mindset. What's really interesting is our industry is one of the few industries that is so rooted in tradition and so rooted in, like, ego and belt ranks and all these other things. Mainly because most people don't get started in this with the theory or with a thought in mind, well, I'm going to become a millionaire by teaching martial arts. Like, usually do it because you're passionate about it, right? Or somebody dropped it down to you. It's not because of that. So I think the real thing that we're looking at is we're going to see people go out of business, frankly, because they stay in that mindset and they never shifted to that mentality of business. And when you shift over to a business mentality, you go, okay, what is the product or service that I'm rendering? Well, it's martial arts classes or after school or whatever it is that you do. And then if I have that business mentality, it also means I have to get better at business. I have to budget my money better. I have to go and get credit from the bank because I need to have plans of expansion. And I'm a firm believer, if you're not growing, you're dying. So if you're not actively seeking to expand your business is contracting, and that contraction will ultimately end in the death of your business. Whether it's now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you just say, oh, I don't have anybody to pass it down to, that's all directly related to what your goals were and your ambitions. So I think it all comes down to getting with somebody who's going to teach you that business element, specifically designed for martial arts, and also prepare you to move with the times, because it's happening. It's already happening. I'm sure it's happening where you are. I was over in Phoenix a couple of like a month ago, I think it was Scottsdale area, and I went for an event, and I was like, I didn't realize how massive the city was and how many different sections it was, and things like that.
It's growing like wildfire, like, luckily.
Yeah, and it's happening in my town too, in Augusta, where I'm at in Georgia, and it's just going to keep happening. The sprawl is going to keep happening in different areas. The contraction is going to happen, and you got to go where the growth is.
Yeah, I agree. We tell our clients that if you're not growing by 9% each year just to keep up with the rise of costs, to keep up with rent increases and all that, you're dying slowly. So I 100% agree. You have to be actively investing in growth and getting to the next level. Otherwise, it's a slow death that's happening. The other thing that I'm sort of seeing with AI now, I think people are getting a lot more keen to what is created by AI and what's not a lot of times. So like we're going really heavy into create the best personal relationships and create the most authenticity possible just
Yeah.
because everyone else is going to be using AI just quick without knowing how to train it, without knowing how to do anything correctly. And it's going to start to be pretty obvious for the general public to look at something and be like, that doesn't seem real. That doesn't seem like
Yeah.
authentic. So I could see that being a sort of a turning point in 2025. Also, though, in the same breath, I think AI is getting to a point where it's almost becoming lifelike in a sense. So you could also see AI just getting to the point where it becomes harder to tell as well. Are you guys using AI in any of your businesses currently?
Yeah.
I'm assuming so, yeah. What
Yeah.
are some of your guys' use cases that you feel like are the most helpful for it?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that if you're still trying to write all of your content yourself from beginning to end, you're going to get left behind.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's obviously inside of the businesses that we have. Like, um, we're utilizing it for that, reviews, emails, like all those different types of things. I think the areas of underutilization that I see that I wish our clients were using it more is helping you think through problems. I
Mm.
think it's a really great mechanism to help you think through multiple scenarios. And it may just be, just a higher level of business thinking where you're thinking through different scenarios. What's my risk? What's my opportunity? Kind of doing a SWOT analysis on it. It's really great for those types of things. I wish people would use it more for that. I think where it's going to get overutilized is like what you're saying. Everybody's just going to go, give me a response. And then it's
Yep.
gonna, like, there's no tone. You have to train your tone. You got to make sure that it knows what you sound like. And then it's going to be able to spit those things out. And then I think the other thing that we definitely use it a lot for is just analyzing, which
Yep.
is kind of the same that I said earlier, but a little different. So maybe you just want to get down to the nuts and bolts of something. And if you're, do you know about the DISC scale, DISC?
Yep.
Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm a high DI, depending upon which day I flip between an I or a D. But in both of those, like I'm a driver, so I'm gonna push things forward. I don't want to sit there and analyze everything and take it. I just want what's the bottom line. So
Yep.
for a person like me that's very bottom line oriented, like let's get to the point so I can make a decision, I can take the information my team gives me, throw it into the chat GPT, get the bullet points that I need to, or I can take a transcript and do the same thing. Let's say I'm analyzing a conversation maybe the team had, they sent me the Fathom, and I can get down to the nuts and bolts of it. So I would say in a virtual like business type of environment, that's very, very helpful. But I could see, with other school owners being able to analyze data as well, that's going to be super helpful for them too.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I'm very similar on the DIS model as you,
Yeah.
where I'm just like, I don't need a whole like lecture. Just give me like the necessary information, so we can move forward from this. The one of the things that we've been using it for, or I've been using it for, is I trained to be a CPA and CFO. And
Mm,
not that I rely on it for that, but after I talk to my CPA, I'll usually throw all the data in there as well, just to get alternate viewpoints on it. And it's interesting, even on that side, it'll pick up some things that like I'll have a conversation with my CPA, and it'll be something that we didn't think of on the call that ChatGPT was like, did you look at it from this angle? I'm like, damn. So yeah, I think the uses are endless, and I figured you were using it a lot, probably in different ways as well. For retention, because this has been a big topic that I've been having conversations with school owners on. Um, and I don't know if you're seeing this as well, but just when I'm going to events, when I'm speaking at events, I'll talk to school owners, and the one topic that always comes up in conversations is they're like, "Man, we're just struggling with retention right now,"
mhm.
which uh, that hurts my heart. But what are some things that you guys focus on in order to just increase buy-in, culture and just make people want to be there as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to have an onboarding experience, and that gets left behind. And that onboarding can be from the very beginning, right? I think if I say onboarding, someone might think, okay, they're a student now. Now I have to onboard them. But
Yes.
onboarding actually happens from that first point of contact. And that's where I would say that sales starts and marketing ends. Marketing is just designed to get you the conversation started. Sales picks up from there. And then after that, student success keeps them long term. But you've got to get them in that sales window. For me, the sale isn't actually through until they're about 2 weeks, 4 weeks into the program. Even if they've signed up, whatever you do, month-to-month contract, whatever program, 3 to 4 weeks in the program, they're satisfied. Okay, like sales has ended and now we're into retention. But too many people just go, oh, I got their money. Good luck, and that's where they fall off. That's where the highest buyer's remorse is going to be. That's where you're going to get the most challenges with people just not knowing, where do I even put my shoes? Where am I supposed to sit? Funny enough, that there was an academy for baseball and softball that just opened up recently. I was driving by it and I was like, I had this whole thought pattern in my head. I was going, I wonder what it looks like inside. And then on my next thought was like, I wonder if they have a website that shows me what it looks like inside. And then my next thought was, should I go and just stop inside to look at it? And then I went, no, I'm too busy for that. That is the exact same process that every other prospect goes through.
Yes.
For martial arts, right? And so how do we get them to that point where they go, I'm willing to go inside? Well, that's where your sales happens. And then how do we get them to say over and over again, I'm willing to keep going inside every single time? Like, it takes a lot of effort to get out of your car and go and take your kid. And we just forget that because we just show up to do the thing we love, where we're asking somebody else to show up and do the thing that they're just interested in. You know what I mean? So I think that's the big difference, is that onboarding experience.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I was at a fitness convention this last weekend, and it was Exponential Fitness. So they own like Pure Barre and all these big brands. And I was talking to one of the founders of those brands, and one of the stats that was shared with me was their stick rate is 5 months, and their average lifetime value is $730, which I was like, ugh. So it came down to a couple of things. Number one, they were just charging too much for drop-in rates and not enough for monthly. But the other thing was they were missing onboarding. Their onboarding was like a series of 3 emails, and that was it. And it started at the point of them joining and becoming a member. And that was like a big conversation point of us. It's like, hey, you got to build this out, man, at least 90 to 100 days. You got to start it earlier. And also, like, one of the things that we've been training our team on is, like, we look at it as the viewpoint of we're coaches, right? But a lot of us don't start the coaching process until they actually sign up and become a member. And it's like, no, your first conversation with them should be coaching them. And like, I know schedule objections can come up and stuff. And one of the things that we tell them is like, hey, if you want to be successful at this, your child needs to be here 2 times per week at a minimum. So I need you to commit to getting them here for their success. Can you do that? Yes. Awesome. And I know back in the day, we used to like sort of wait and just be like, hey, can you, what 2 days work best? Can you make it one time? So I think that perspective change has helped a lot with like some of the clients that we've worked with and stuff as well. Anything that you've seen like clients coming in with onboarding that you've like changed this immediately and then you're seeing a better result from them?
Yeah, I mean, the first 4 classes, hand-holding the student, like, just literally, there is a breakdown. Like, I do this on class 1, I do this on class 2, not just email. Like, one of the things that, to that point, just sending out 3 emails, I think so many people think that the emails get read. They don't. They don't. And now, I mean, my phone is blowing up. Like, I'm seeing text messages go off to the side. Since we've been talking, like, there's so many texts that are going through too. They're probably missing them.
Yes.
So you can't just hit them once. You have to hit them multiple ways. But I would say the first 4 classes, if you can break down what are the most crucial things that someone needs to know that will keep them for that first 90 days, what could I do in their first 4, which for us is 2 weeks, first 4 classes that I can get them through. And if you can do that, and we've seen it, things just start dramatically changing for that client.
I agree. I think too, like, the one thing I notice a lot of school owners aren't paying attention to, they'll pay attention to like attrition or retention, but they're not paying attention to like, when are those people actually quitting in their journey? to go back and fix how's the communication before that, how's the progress happening, what milestones are we celebrating to get them past that. And it's funny too, because like when we have new clients come on, a lot of times we'll start looking at that and it's like, well, a majority of your quits are coming in the first 90 days, which is an easy problem to fix in my opinion when you have that data. For everyone listening, I would also make sure that you guys are paying attention to that, because it just makes it so much easier to fix the problem and get ahead of that. And I'm sure you guys do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of the time you're going to have students quit whenever there's a change. So if they change from beginner class to intermediate class, you're going to have people fall off at that point.
Yep.
You're going to have people fall off if they age up into another age group. So it's always, what can I do to mitigate, get someone quitting at any point in a jump. Even as crazy as like, someone quitting right before they take their black belt test because they have to go into a special class to get ready for the black belt test. That little thing right there will cause people to quit. So I agree totally. You should be tracking where those breakpoints are and then trying your best to negate the risk for that student to quit.
Yeah, great advice. And one of the things I always like to ask, like other high achievers, I'm just curious, personal reasons, who are some people that you follow? What are some books that have influenced your life? And like I'm always looking for new things to read, listen to.
Yeah. Oh man. I think initially when I first kind of was going down this entrepreneurial journey, there was a lot of just like Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think there's some of those older books that, were out there. And then when I started really getting into marketing, I started listening a lot to Gary Vee and started, getting his books like, Jab, 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 Right Hook, or those types of books. I'm reading his book right now, his last one. I can't remember the title, but
Day Trading Attention, that one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm reading that one right now. So that one's been fun. As we started growing out staff, I really started getting into John Maxwell. My dad is a certified Maxwell leadership coach and speaker. So he went through all that. I took our team through it. So a lot of John Maxwell books. And that's really great for developing out the mindset around leadership. I think that's so huge. As far as people that, other people I think that were pretty influential, Brendon Burchard's High Performance Habits, really great book. Really great book. Really enjoyed that one. Extreme Ownership, The Dichotomy of Leadership, Jocko Willink, like those are hardcore essentials, I think, for anybody that wants to get out of this victim mentality. And maybe you don't even think you have a victim mentality. When you read that book, you're like, oh crap, I have a victim mentality about this, So those were great. As far as podcasts or people that I listen to regularly or follow regularly, I like a lot of Myron Golden. I don't know if you've
Myron's awesome. Yes.
Yeah,
I love Myron.
I just love how he speaks, how he brings his faith into everything as well. And so that's a big one for me. And then Russell Brunson, he was big in the beginning and then he kind of shifted and now he's got a little uptick again. I'm enjoying seeing his content come out and seeing how he's kind of reinventing himself because he pulled away from business for a while. So those are a lot of the people that I'm listening to and learning from. And I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones that just come to mind right now.
Yeah, Myron Golden, I just started getting into probably this last year. And it's funny because all the first like clips I saw of him was him talking about faith. And I had no idea at first that he had any business knowledge or anything. Because I was just seeing all those clips on faith. And then I heard him start talking about business and sales. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, this guy's so intelligent in multiple areas. So those of you guys listening, if you haven't checked out Myron Golden, please do so. He's awesome. Russell Brunson, fun fact, first marketing book I ever read was I think it was Expert Secrets or .com Secrets was the first one, right? .com Secrets.
I think it was .com and then was Expert after that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I was so drawn into just like the value ladder concept, and I skipped my college class that day to finish reading the book, and that was sort of what got me interested into marketing. So I'm glad he's coming back as well. Like he's another smart dude.
Yeah. Sure.
Question for you that I always. When I talk to other people that are consulting in the industry, I always like talking to them about this. What do you feel like is the worst advice being given in our industry right now? You don't have to say who's saying it, but
I think it's I don't know, probably when I kind of got where I was like, oh, I'm going to really focus on growing Seven Figure Dojo, I also decided to stop following or listening to anybody else really. So I would
Sure.
have to go maybe back. I do think that there's some people that are spouting the same thing that they used to say 30 years ago. And the only reason I know that is because I was like growing up in it and
Yep.
I heard the same thing, and they're just not changing with the times. So if you're still telling people to sign up like right off the bat for a 12-month contract, I think that that's giving you, it's really a disadvantage for you. I just think it
Yeah.
is. I think that we're way past that. Post COVID, there's so much lack of trust just in society in general. And so you're just going to miss out on a lot. I think maybe the only other piece of advice is that I hear a lot is that there should be a standard price. Like you should be charging $200 a month, or you should be charging 250, or you should be charging 150. Name a price, but that doesn't really work because everybody's in a different economic area. Like,
Yes.
my average household income in my area, I think we looked at it recently, was like 140 grand annual average household income, where I have clients that their average household income in their area is 80,000. It doesn't make sense to go,
Yeah.
well, you should charge Jennifer's prices. No, we should look at your area and we should see what the market can bear. And if you want to charge my prices, just realize you need to either move to a different area, but when you move, don't forget your rent's going to be
Mhm.
higher. So does it make sense? Or what's your net going to be anyway? So those would be the two main things, like long-term contracts right off the bat, and then there should be some sort of standardized pricing across the U.S. for martial arts classes. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I think the standard pricing across the country makes zero sense. Like you said, I think the demographics also, like, you don't know what that person's rent is, what their expenses are, to be able to make sure they're actually charging enough to make a living and be profitable. I also think like on the membership side, I think a lot of times we can watch the fitness industry to sort of see the trends on those things, just because they're usually a few steps ahead of the martial arts industry, for the most part. And if you just look at consumer behavior, most people are used to month everything now. Which I think like our upgrade program, we do a term commitment, but we do
Yeah.
month to start with. And I think it's what people expect nowadays, like whether it's online subscriptions, their gym membership, whatever it is, it all sort of goes about that, or doing a short-term commitment to start with, I think is another option as well.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I completely agree with that. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about, because I see you training regularly. I see you posting clips, which is awesome. I love
Yeah.
when I see school owners training still.
Yeah.
How do you balance out? Because I know so many, I think, school owners that aren't getting coached right now are worried about, well, if I'm successful, then I'm not going to have good students. Like it's almost like they have to choose either business success or having high quality martial artists. How do you balance that out?
Well, I think it will be true if you don't train your team, because you're going to be too consumed with the business. So, of course, if you don't train your team to hold the standards that you had, they will hold the standards they create. And those standards that they create may not be your standards. Um, so, I think that that's a big piece of it. You've got to train them and have standards. And for a lot of people, they don't even know what that is. They just go, well, that's a black belt, or that's a yellow belt, or that's a blue. Like, but what does that mean? What are we actually looking at? Um, is there an attendance requirement? Is there a technique requirement? Is it based on attitude? At what age does it change where it is legit? Like, I have to be able to do 100 burpees to pass this test. Is it different across styles? Like, in our school, we teach 3 different styles. We have Kempo Karate, which is our base. We have kickboxing, and we have jujitsu. So, like, those are 3 totally different things that we do.
Sure.
And there's different gradings for each of those. So, if you are trying to grow your business but not simultaneously growing your leadership team, then it is likely that your quality on your mats is going to go down. But if you're training your leadership team and you're growing your business, then as your business grows, you can go to where you need to go to make it grow, and you can leave your leadership team in place to withhold the standards that you've set.
Do you see any correlation between owners that don't train having lower quality schools and owners that do train having higher quality students?
Um, that's an interesting question. I I don't know, because I don't know what their standards were when they were training. So
Mm,
I think it would be interesting to take a snapshot before and a snapshot after. What were the standards before and what are they now?
sure.
What do those students look like? I do think in the industry, just in general, that, I mean, gosh, like when I was growing up, I used to take hour and a half, 2 hour classes, and that was just one class.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to take the second class, that was another 2 hours, and now we have kids taking classes for a half hour, 45 minutes, because their attention span has changed, because their bodies, like, how many kids now do you have that can't physically move their bodies around post COVID?
Oh, like a lot when they start. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so it's not just training martial arts, it's training their bodies because they're just not active, right? So, all that to say, there's a lot of different things that kind of play into that. I will say that for me, this is my perspective, and for me, I love martial arts. I don't even have a memory of starting martial arts. My dad started me so young. It's to me, it's like walking, like
Yep.
it's like that. So for me, not doing martial arts, not like participating it in some form or fashion, is like me being in a wheelchair. Like I can get where I need to go, but I got to roll around in a wheelchair instead of using my legs. And so I would always want to be involved in some extent. With that being said, I don't teach every class anymore. It's
Sure.
classes I want to teach, and sometimes because I'm traveling, I don't stay consistent. And there's other instructors who take the class. Like, it just is that way. But I use it for physical fitness. I don't like
Same.
just staying on the treadmill and running. Like, my husband's a marathon runner and he also does martial arts, and I'm like, you go run. I'm gonna go hit the bag. I'm gonna go do that. So that's what I use it for. Keep in shape, sharpen the mind, and really just to relax, reduce stress. So if
I-
a school owner is not doing that, like, I hope they have a different outlet that they are.
Yeah. I also I feel like you can, like, my personal opinion, I feel like you can keep your instructors sharper when you're doing your own training. Just
Mhm.
because, like, you know this, when we train, we start to pick up on mistakes that we're making or things that we're doing incorrectly, and then we'll fix a small detail and like it just clicks. And
Yeah.
I think there's something to that because it allows you to then communicate that to your instructors, and it helps them to fix it. And now they start looking for new things with the students that they're coaching. Um, so I think there is some correlation possibly there.
Yeah.
I also think though it goes down to how great is your leadership team. If you have some rock star instructors, then it's not relying on you as much, and you can still have great quality students. But there's I wish more owners would train, I guess, more consistently because I think it would be better for them, better for their schools. Um, and I wish everyone shared that same passion for training that owns a martial arts school.
Yeah.
Um,
It's huge. It's huge when you can have it, just because I think it's the law of the lid, right? That's basically, that's a
yep,
Maxwell principle, like the law of the lid. You're gonna be the ceiling for everybody else that's underneath you. So you've either got to step aside, and that's another thing. Maybe because sometimes it's an age thing, right? Like, my dad's in his 60s. He's not out there fighting and sparring and, tapping people out like he used to do in his 40s. Like, it's not the
sure,
and so his training is different than it was when he was 40 years old. And when I was fighting, like, my training was totally different than what it is now. And I just want to do martial arts for longevity, not because I'm trying to
same,
prove anything or do anything like that. So yes, I agree, like, school owners should be try to do something, like, just
yep.
try to get some kind of training in it. It's helpful for your mind, at least.
I'm just trying to be Dave Kovar when I grow up. That's all. He's still in
Yeah,
amazing
still
shape.
like Bill Wallace, right? Like, he's still like
Yes.
flipping out side kicks. Yeah.
Yeah, when Bill Wallace was 60, he kicked like one of our teenage students in the head like it was nothing, and I don't understand how he's still able to do it. It's amazing.
He's crazy.
So, you being a fellow dojo rat like me, who are some of the people in the industry that were big influences on you when you were younger? Because like for me, it was like the Dave Kovar, the Ernie Reyes, growing up in sort of that EFC world.
Yeah.
Interested who you were looking up to?
Well, we're over here in the southeast, so are you familiar with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson? You know him?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So Stephen and I basically grew up together because his dad, Ray Thompson, and my dad are best friends. My
Oh,
dad is
cool.
Mr. Thompson's instructor, so, like, the lineage and stuff like that. We teach Kempo, karate, all of that. So, like, we were traveling all the time back and forth to Simpsonville and Augusta. It's only like 2 hours away from each other. So Steven's older sister, Lindsay Thompson, who then married
Who's Carlos Machado's wife? Yep.
Yeah. So Lindsay was, I mean, she kicked butt like crazy in kickboxing. She was knocking girls out. Like she was 16 years old. I remember being at one of the kickboxing events and she threw a back leg round kick right in this girl's neck. And then boom, girl is out. So like Lindsay was my idol. And, you know,
Awesome.
that's why I got into kickboxing. So like everything was about that and being like Lindsay and stuff like that. And then obviously Carlos Machado, they met probably when I was about 13 years old, 12 or 13 years old. So my dad's a second degree black belt underneath Carlos. So like the jujitsu and, you know, the kickboxing, and then Steven got into MMA. So like from that standpoint, it was those guys growing up, like they were a huge part of my martial arts heroes. I didn't really I didn't really have too many other, I guess just watching TV like Ernie Reyes and stuff like that, but I never actually got to train with him. Bill Wallace was another one that I got to do seminars with him. And then there were just lesser known people that went and I did seminars with and those types of things as a kid growing up. But I think that even though they're not necessarily mainstream with everybody else, like that their family and watching just how they fought and things like that, that was, you know, those were my childhood heroes.
That's awesome. Carlos is one of my favorite humans. He's such a good person.
Yeah.
I've gotten along with him great. I would love to pivot to some marketing talk now, since like we both have a passion for marketing. What are some things right now that you feel like? Let's talk digital first. On the digital side, what do you think are some things that are sort of the things that every martial arts school owner should be doing right now? And is there anything on the digital side you feel like people should start shying away from?
Yeah. If you're not going to do paid advertising, you definitely need to have a website that attracts leads.
Yep.
There's a lot of just, I don't know how they even still exist, but there's websites that were made like 25 years ago, and you can tell they were made 25 years ago. No one touched them. So I think that's huge. And then also Google My Business. You got to be on Google My Business, like updating it regularly.
Yep.
Make sure you're posting your hours. Make sure you're doing those types of things. If you're not going to do paid media, if you are going to do paid media, then number one, you got to have a budget for paid media. So many times I hear school owners, or we have school owners who are like, oh, I just want to spend $200 a month and get 20 students. And the reality is that media costs have gone up over time, just like everything else. So if you're expecting that you're going to get a lead, and we do have, I mean, I'm sure you do, there's pockets of people that will get leads for $2 or $3 a lead,
Yes.
$4 a lead. And you're like, holy cow, jackpot, you know, this is going to be great. And there's other people that they're in such saturated areas, or martial arts has been in their area, or they're in such a small town that it might be $40 or $50 to get that same lead. And so it's unfair for them to compare one versus the other.
Yep.
But it happens, right? Everybody has that. I think another one that's interesting that I see in some of the Facebook groups sometimes that circulate around is, I've tried every single one of the agencies in the space, but they're all the same, right?
Yep. That's common.
That might lead you to think, if they're all the same, what's the commonality between them?
Yep.
The individual, right? So if you're just relying on one method of marketing, I think you just have stacked the cards against you, frankly.
Yeah.
We're way past that. You have to have multiple methods of touching and getting people to think about it. So paid advertising, you got to have the budget for it. And you need to know what your actual cost of acquisition is.
That's huge. Yes.
If you don't have an idea of what your cost of acquisition, and to your point earlier, knowing the lifetime value of a student, like if I know my lifetime value of a student, I'm just going to use easy math numbers and easy numbers. If I know that it's $2,000, but it cost me $200 to acquire a student, I'm going to pay the $200 so I get $3,000 every single time, and then on Sunday twice at least, right? So, man, that's huge. But again, martial arts mindset, business mindset, right? If I'm a business and I run an HVAC company, and I go, well, I'm going to sell this, air conditioning unit, and it costs $15,000, and it takes me $500 to acquire this customer. I'll go buy the customer. Well, that HVAC guy is going to keep doing that. But we as business owners as martial arts school owners don't view business the same way, and we really should. So I really wish the industry would get to that point. And that's what I'm trying to educate people about is
Yep.
whoever you go with, please just know your numbers. And then once you know your numbers, you can maximize, you can turn that dial and you can pump it up. And at some point, it's probably going to max in that one avenue, and you're going to have to seek out a different avenue to increase the school's growth or the business growth as well.
Yeah, I wish our industry would pay more attention to cost per acquisition and lifetime value, and then being able to figure out what the return on ad spend is as a result.
Yeah.
I think it would give people, first of all, give them way more confidence to spend on marketing, knowing that, hey, I'm getting X return on this cost per acquisition. I was trying to tell our clients, it's like if you had a slot machine that every time you put $200 in, it automatically gave you 2,000 back. How long would you be putting money in that slot machine? Like you wouldn't leave. So yeah, I think that's huge. It was same thing. We're trying to educate more people in the industry just about those numbers so that they understand what's working. I think that the other thing that is sort of plaguing our industry is for the school owners that aren't as business savvy. I think they sort of get in the mindset of like, what's the magic pill? Like, where's the on button for leads that I can just press it, and then leads will come or students will come through no matter what. And maybe not realizing that, hey, first of all, there has to be a process to convert the leads that you're getting, because they're not just going to become trials or members or that on their own. There has to be nurturing. There has to be the follow-up system in place to them. You have to call them within the first 5 minutes and not just rely on automated text messages all the time. And then I think the other part of it is, and part of why they jump from agency to agency is they don't understand what the return on investment is. Because like we had like one client I can think of back in the day that was getting like 20 enrollments a month, and they're spending like $1,200 a month.
Whoa.
But the school across town was supposedly getting like 30 enrollments a month, and they're like, well, we're not getting 30. And I was like, do you guys understand how good your return on investment is right now? And like, I sat down and we have like a little calculator, like a spreadsheet calculator. We show them it in, and we're like, look at this. And they're like, but my cost per lead is high. And I was like, you're looking at the wrong number. That's not the metric that matters in this specific case. And they're like, you're saying that because you're an agency owner. I'm like, no, if this was my school, I'd be doing backflips right now. Like, so I think that missing part of education is a big missing factor, and part of the reasons they are jumping from agency to agency a lot. So I agree with you on that. Is there anything that you see like on the digital side that maybe something that used to work that you don't see working anymore, that you're like, I wish school owners would stop focusing so much on this?
Yeah, I would say boosted posts. Okay, so you can use boosted posts at a very, I would say, not even high level, but mid-level marketing strategy for different things. But the problem is that people are using it not knowing what the use case is for. It's like they're trying to take a drill that you would just drill in a screw in the wall, but you're going to take it and use it as a hammer. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's a technical tool that should be used for a certain objective, a certain thing. But because Facebook, which kudos to Facebook for trying to figure out how do I make this accessible to more people, but Facebook goes, do you want to boost this post? And they're like, yes. And then what happens is they get this false belief that, oh, it only, it's recommended that I show it to my whole entire area and I hit $200. Well, it doesn't work. Facebook doesn't work. Instagram doesn't work. No, it does. You're just using the tool wrong. So I really wish that people would just stop boosting posts, and either you figure out how to run ads yourself with a specific objective, whether it's a lead generation objective, whether it's a landing page objective, or you're going to try to push them to a landing page and then collect their, whatever that is, either you figure it out, or if you don't want to spend the time, energy, and frankly, the fortitude to stay on top of it, then you should reach out to experts that do, and that can do it on your behalf. Whatever the two, but don't waste your money on boosted posts, because you're really just taking cash and just flushing it down the toilet when you're doing that.
Yeah, I think the only boost that I see still work is boosting community events.
Yes,
and that's probably the only time I would recommend it as well. And we had one of Mr. Beast's videographers, Brady Edwards, speak at our last event, and I was talking to him about boosting, and he goes, we only recommend boosting when you have the budget to be boosting, essentially. So he's like, these six-figure budget companies we work for, we'll have them boost stuff just to get traction so we can retarget it. But he's like, most small businesses don't even have the budget to do a retargeting campaign half the time. So I get that side of it as well. And then as far as email strategy, text message strategy, what do you guys see working, not working on that front?
Yeah, you gotta hammer the prospect as soon as they come in.
Hmm.
You just have to. You can't. I mean, I remember when I was a kid that we would get leads. It's probably why our school didn't grow, but we would get leads, and like they would leave a voicemail, and we called them back the next day, and they would say, "Oh yeah, I was expecting your call." No one's expecting your call
No.
anymore. Like
True.
if they even leave you a voicemail, which they probably won't, they want information. They want it now.
Hmm.
So if I put my information in and you don't call me for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, I'm thinking about something else. And that's the piece that people miss is there's two different types of leads that are coming in. There's high intent leads and then there's low intent leads. And your low intent leads are going to be the ones that you're popping up an ad. They've never even
Yep.
thought about martial arts before. You're popping up an ad and they go, "Oh, wow. Yeah, I've been thinking Johnny does have that issue with focus. Maybe martial arts would help." Click. And then Johnny spills something. Now they're cleaning up whatever he spilled, right? They're not thinking about what you just did. The shorter that window of time that you can have from the point that they give you the information to the point you follow up, the more likely you are to actually get them to the next point, which is setting that appointment. So relentlessly pushing and pushing and pushing and hammering them with texts and calls. And don't worry, like if I think so many people are worried about their reputation. Well, they're gonna think that I'm some sort of pushy salesperson because I call 2 or 3 times a day. What does it matter?
Yeah.
You're in business. Like
I
this.
also think I think too from the perspective, like if I'm going to provide good customer service, then I have a responsibility to deliver the information they're asking for. So if it just means that the first time I call them is not a convenient time for them, then it's on me if I want to deliver 5-star customer service to find the time that is right for them, at least until they say stop.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I agree. And I think the school owners that I see that sort of carry that mindset of like, well, we're going to call them 3 times a day no matter what, they usually have the highest conversions out of everyone. And just curious, what are you guys seeing as far as like lead to trial or lead to appointment conversion that's considered good for the clients you work with?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would want to make sure that we're going to lead to set appointments somewhere around that 30 to 50%
Okay, cool.
if it's coming from social media.
Yep.
You know, and most of the time people don't segment where it's coming from. So that's why I say 30 to 50% because
Yeah.
you're going to have warm traffic, you're going to have cold traffic. So if you're in 30 to 50%, once you get them on the phone, all phone calls and all conversations aren't equal. So again,
Hmm.
back in the old days, I know that it used to be touted, oh, you should be at 80%. All of your appointments, like 80 to 90% of the people you talk to should be setting an appointment. But I think there's so many other variabilities now where they're coming from and things like that. So minimum that I
Agreed.
want to see is a 50%. Like if you can do 50%, then you're good. And then same thing, if we can get 50% of the people showing up, that's great. If we can get 50% of the people closing, that's great. That would be average. And so
Yes.
you track it from beginning to end. What I've seen on average, if you can get 7 leads, you can pull out 1 enrollment. And that's just taking it down little by little. When you
Yep.
just some schools that we have, like to your point, they've got that follow-up system in place and things like that. They're hitting 4 and 5 to 1 and they're growing
Yep.
exponentially. I have a client, he just enrolled 90 students in 90 days. Like
It's awesome.
he's like killing it, killing it, killing it. Probably needs to raise his prices now. We're going to talk to him about that. But, and then I've got other clients, they're at 15 to 1. It's because they're not pushing as hard. They're not following up. They're not utilizing those systems. So that's what I see at least is can we push to that metric, 30 to 50%, and then can everything else be 50%? And if you do that on average, you're gonna end up being okay.
Yeah, lead to trial, we pretty much teach the same range. So right on with that. I knew you were smart. And then the other side of what we're just talking about with just like follow-ups and everything is you have the solopreneurs, right? And the ones that are like, well, I have trouble following up with leads because I'm teaching classes or whatever the reasoning might be. What advice do you give those people that are listening that are like, well, what if I'm on the floor?
Yeah. Um, it's not going to be liked advice, I'll put it that way, but I'm going to give it anyway. So I think you're teaching too many classes.
Mm.
I think you are. If you're telling me that you can't follow up with leads because you have so many classes to teach and so many students to teach, then why can't you hire somebody? If you don't have the money, well, that means that you're teaching classes that have 5 and 6 people in each class.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
Combine some classes.
yeah, like you need to kill some classes in your day. And I think that's I would think it's more of an ego thing. Like, oh, well, I teach 5 nights a week and it's all night from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night. I'm teaching. Well, again, if you have a school and it's like 50 to 100 students, you probably aren't rostering those students into specific classes and really squeezing out the amount of mat space that you can provide. And you also are probably not conscious of what is a great class time and what is a horrible class time. And so sometimes we encounter school owners that they want more kids, but they only offer kids class at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, the vast majority of parents work, so they're never going to be able to get to your 4 o'clock class unless it's after school, right? You pick up the kids. That's totally different. But you've got to be able to do sales. Like the order that we teach as far as building your business up to 7 figures is number 1, you have to have your acquisition. You got to have marketing. The second step is sales. The third step is student success. Like out of the 7 steps, those are the first 3. So you need to go in that order. Be marketing, do sales, and then teach classes.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
No, completely agree. First of all, thank you so much for just sharing so much on the podcast today. And it was good because I think it's the first time we've gotten to actually talk. So it's just good to see that we're on the same page for a lot of things. And we both do things differently too, which is great because I think the one thing that drives me crazy when I hear consultants is like, no, there's only one way to be successful. And it's like, no, there's 50,000 different ways to be successful, and the school owners proven that every day. So I think there's beauty in that as well. But I just wanted to thank you for taking the time out today and just sharing with everyone. If people want to start following you and hearing more about what you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can go to the website, sevenfiguredojo.com, the number 7figuredojo.com, or I'm on Facebook or Instagram, Jennifer Waters. Look me up. That's the easiest place to find me.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.
We're unstoppable. To the top, we about to go. That CEO, I need to know the impact we about to grow. Competition comical. Straight A1, we on the road. Money focus for the goal. Tell them what they need to know. We unstoppable.